Hello, everyone. Welcome to perhaps the second best Hold My Spot podcast ever. Could be tied for first. It might even be first. And obviously, I'm referring to being tied with the last episode, which was also a solo episode of just me, no Ethan. So obviously, it's going to be the best, maybe second best, maybe tied for first best. I don't know. But that's the hope. So anyway, coming with a special episode for you. We are going to talk about Foreigner, who I saw tonight at Blossom Music venue in Cuyahoga Falls. And this was one that I had planned with some family members, and Ethan wasn't even invited. But I had to make sure that I was going to have the first or maybe even second best podcast. So that was really the main reason why I didn't invite him. But anyway, gotta say, these guys brought it. It's the second time I saw them. I saw them in 2018 with my older brother at the time. He had won those tickets from like Sirius XM or something like that. And that tour in 2018, they toured with Whitesnake, which didn't really love Whitesnake. I mean, they've got one or two songs that I liked, but I remember them being pretty much like all the same, or at least they sounded all the same. But that's neither here nor there. We're not going to talk too much about the 2018 show. But tonight, the opener was actually a bunch of high school kids, a cappella groups and choirs, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it was a little weird, but it was kind of cool to give those kids, a stage and have them perform it in front of a lot of people. But anyway, the main opener was another great 80s band, Loverboy. You might remember that from the classic SNL skit with Chris Farley and Patrick Swayze. That's what automatically comes to my mind when I think about Loverboy. But they definitely have some other great songs too. Besides Everybody's Working for the Weekend. So good opener, definitely definitely right there in the genre. They were a really good pairing. After them, there was about a half-hour break. Foreigner went on, and they just killed with all the hits. I mean, they started with Double Vision, started on a couple high notes, Double Vision, Head Games, brought it down maybe a little bit with Cold as Ice, and then they hit one of those 80s vibey songs that I like so much, Waiting for a Girl Like You. And then it sort of ebbed and flowed. There were a couple acoustic songs, which I think were originals to this new lineup. For those of you that don't know, there isn't a surviving member of the original lineup of Foreigner in the current lineup of Foreigner. But if you didn't know that, you would have no idea, because the sound was great. Those guys are total pros. They're the best in the business. The singer's voice sounds just like those recordings from the 70s and 80s. I think you'd be very happy if you went and saw them live. I know I was so happy the first time that I came and went a second time 5 years later. One thing that stuck out to me about the set, though, is they talked to the crowd a lot more than most of the other bands that I'm seeing do. And I think that might be because they don't have as many constraints as some of these, maybe not even newer bands, but bands that have only been around for 20 years, as opposed to a band that's been around for, going on 40 and even 50. I think that they have a little bit more control, and they're going to take their time and play what they want to play and make sure that the people are happy. They did talk a lot to the crowd, which I thought was cool. I actually wish sometimes that the other emo and alt rock and punk bands, they engaged more with the crowd, because a lot of them don't. There were times when I thought Foreigner was maybe a little wordy, talking a little bit too much, but I'm also not their key demographic, their key fan. Most people in the audience were maybe late 40s to 70s. So I'm not in my late 40s or 70s, but definitely still have an appreciation. Outside of that, they did play some extended versions of the songs. At least it seemed like some of the songs were really long, which I didn't mind. Jukebox Hero, they played, I don't know how long it actually is on the record, but say it's 3 minutes. They played a 7-minute version of it. I mean, it was a really long version, really cool. A lot of lights. They have great set design. I like that. Again, like I said, vibey 70s, early 80s. The bright lights, the pinks, the light blues, the neon, all of those things. They did a really nice job. So overall, very happy. The other thing I'm really proud of is I got out of Blossom's parking lot and home all within about an hour, which I've been stuck in their lot, which I think I may have mentioned before. I've been stuck in their lot for over 2 hours at some times before even then making my way home. So door to door this time was 1 hour, and that's exactly what I wanted. Because guess what? As a corporate punk, I have to go to work tomorrow. So, so at least I'll be somewhat well rested for that. Anyway, it's a great show. If they're coming to town, yeah, the tickets are probably a little bit more expensive than a lot of the other shows that we're going to. But they're a legacy act that may or may not be touring again. I don't know. This is sort of billed as their final tour, which I think we all know that when a tour is billed as the final tour, it's probably a 3 to 5 year long tour. And then they might take a year break, and then they might come back and do it again for another 2 to 4 years. So I always think about, I saw Elton John and their Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour 2017, 2018. And like the week after that, he announced, you know, another huge leg to that tour. And I think he finally just hung it up from that Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour like 6 months ago. So he had this final tour, but the final tour lasted for 5 years, 6 years. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. If you think it's the final tour or not, it's still definitely worth checking out. I don't like to miss any band that comes to town because you never know when you might see them again. If maybe there's an accident or something happens to them, or they break up or whatever. Definitely give them a shot if you're into 70s and 80s music, which I think a lot of people in our demographic are. I mean, it's definitely played quite a bit. So anyway, that's about all I've got for you. Going to keep it short and sweet again, since I don't have Ethan to play off of here. So appreciate you for checking out this second best, maybe first best, maybe second worst or first worst. I don't know. But thanks again for checking it out, and I'll be sure to hold a spot for you at the next show in the Cleveland area.